Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Maz and today I'm in Staverton. And in today's video I'll be trying out this Jaguar I-Pace. First time trying out an EV. A huge thank you to Marshall, Jaguar, Land Rover, Cheltenham and Gloucester for this opportunity, and thank you also for this t-shirt that I'm wearing and my heritage green and gold set, which I'll show you a picture of. So a quick overview: the Jaguar I-Pace is Jaguar's first and currently only electric vehicle offering. It was launched in 2017. I was actually there on the unveil for the I-Pace e-Trophy car in Birmingham, NEC, and I still remember seeing an I-Pace for the first time and I thought it looked really good and it looked very futuristic. To be fair, it still looks fairly futuristic today. The I-Pace are most likely going to be discontinued when Jaguar gets its new rebrand in 2025. This car has 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. This one is a phase 3, distinguished by its front grille, if you can call it a grille. So coming to the front, as I mentioned, this is a phase 3, which has the updated grille and these matte finishes here. Interestingly, it has the double J blades like you get on an XJ. If we unlock the car, there you go. Not one, but 2 J blades on each side. On the I-Pace key, instead of getting a light button, you get a front boot button. Also, I mentioned earlier about this grille panel. On the earlier cars, you would get an intake here and it would come out here, but on this later car I'm not so sure, and that's all your space in the front boot. And you get your obligatory Jaguar script here and your charging cables. Now, I mentioned about this being an intake. It looks like it's been blanked out on this later model, as I see no access to the grille at all. And of course it's on struts. Interestingly, Jaguar hide the model designation on here as well. So not only do you get the VIN, but also you get the model and trim. So this is an I-Pace 400 Sport EV 400 all-wheel drive. While this I-Pace has the newer style wipers, unlike the newer style, it still has the washer jets housed onto the wiper arms themselves, which I actually prefer. And interestingly, you don't have to put your wipers into service mode to lift them up, so that's a bonus. Coming to the side, you get 22-inch wheels. They're 255s at the front as well as the rear, and of course I mentioned that the growlers are black on these later cars. Here is your charge port, AC and DC charging. Mirrors are exactly like any other Jaguars. The door handles, they pop in and out, so there's me locking the car, and if I press this button, they unlock. The general profile, I do like the look of a lot. They call it an I-Pace to refer to it as a crossover model or an SUV, but silhouette wise I do like the way it looks. It looks somewhat 3-box, with the back end ever so slightly sticking out. And of course it's got tinted windows, which I like the way it looks, and the silhouette looks very coupe-ish, especially the way the rear window points, and this rear 3/4 panel has a muscular haunch. Coming to the back, the I-Pace was the first Jaguar to implement the chicane tail lights. There we go, and they are still being used on this later car. This particular car has the black Jaguar Leaper, and I'm glad that they put the lip spoiler here to add in a little bit more style and flair. And you even get a spoiler on top of the deck lid as well, and even a shark fin. Opening the boot, you got yourself another set of cables. You get a parcel shelf, and this is how much space you get. You also get a 12-volt socket, and not one, but two hooks. Once again, you can press the button here, or you can just press it here to close the tailgate. Coming to the back. One good thing about the I-Pace is that the very bottom of the door covers the side skirts, so if you're coming in and out of the car in very terrible weather, you don't have to worry about dirtying the backs of your trousers. And thankfully this car has the really nice red interior, which I really like the look of. You get Isofix here, but they are behind removable covers, so you might lose them. And this is what the door looks like. Again, this is an EV400, so this is not a special edition or a performance trim, and yet you still get the carbon look trim on this car. And of course I do like the sculpted door releases on these newer cars, and this car has the Meridian sound system. Luckily, unlike on the SVR Range Rover, you do get seat back nets, though I prefer them to be pockets. Sitting in the back, I do feel very comfortable. You do get grab handles in the back. This particular car has the fake suede headliner, and check this out, a glass roof with no beam in between. Not a big fan of this pillar here, but I know they did that so the windows go all the way down. Do they? Almost. Just that little bit there. But I have seen worse. Headroom is decent for me. I'm 172 centimeters. Legroom and knee room are fine. That front seat is lowered, so if it were to be raised, I would get a little bit more footroom. This car has a center armrest, if I can get it out. There we go. And there is no through loading, but you do get two cup holders, and they are placed the right way round, unlike on the Range Rover. So there really is space for your arm, and your hands are right there if you want cups. This particular car has the rear climate controls. The rear passengers can choose their fan speed, where they want the air to blow, and two dials in the back, along with USB, 12 volt, and another USB. And just to clarify, the reason there are no air vents here is because they're actually here and there, which I actually prefer. Coming to the business end now. And, well, for starters, you do get the illuminated kick plates on this one. Again, the red and the carbon is extended to the doors as well. This particular car has memory seats, and interestingly, the heel pad for the accelerator isn't covered by the mat. And even though this has performance seats, it does not have the sport pedals. And bizarrely, you still get the older style window switches. The silver ones would have suited this car better. Now coming inside, that door thunk sounded very nice. It feels like you're in a more premium and futuristic interior. This steering wheel originated on this car, the I-Pace, which has now made its way to almost every other Jaguar, bar the F-Type. And while this particular one does not have the silver ends on the indicator and wiper stalks, they do feel a lot more upmarket and have a more damped thunk. And I might as well go to point of view. So here's my point of view. Like I mentioned, it's got the much nicer steering wheel, which was first used on the I-Pace. And you do get a much nicer center console. So if I were to turn on the accessories, this whole area lights up. And how's this for a gear selector? You just have buttons here, which I prefer over certain gear selectors. The F-Type style gear selector on the XC I did not like the look of at all. But on this it still frees up some space, and you got a place for your phone. Maybe sideways. There we go. And it can even accommodate my S23 Ultra. And I'm guessing this gap here could be used for something else. And you also get the heritage lozenges on that pad. Over here you could use this as a biro holder or a place to put your keys. Cup holders are exposed, but if I open this center console, here is the cover. Personally, I would prefer either a pop-out one or a retractable one, but it's still something. And if you want, you can just, the releaser is here, you can just take this entire section out, like so. And of course, you got your USB-C, USB, and 12 volt. And let's just take a moment to admire these red performance seats. And of course, these are the soft Windsor leather, and you get the leaper on the headrest. And these subtle labels here, established 1935 Jaguar Coventry. Missed opportunity to have red seat belts on this particular interior. And I forgot to talk about the dash. It's very driver focused. It's got this instrument binnacle that wraps around the center air vents. It's not tilted, but this line here does make it look very driver focused, especially when this passenger section sort of tucks away. Also, glove box is the usual. This interior trim, I'm guessing, is 400 Sport specific, and this Phase 3 car has the Pivi, and I think this particular one wears the Pivi infotainment system the best. So if I had to be pedantic, they could have filled in this gloss black area. But yep, it's got your usual stuff. I'm not really going to bother mentioning it. But even in your EV runabout, you still got dynamic eye and a stopwatch and lap times if you want to throw it around Castle Combe, and even a G meter, as well as a throttle and brake reader. The lower screen is your climate control, and yes, it's got heated seats, but it's also got cooled seats. But alternatively, you can just do that. Then it goes into normal mode. One more time. There's your climate. And you pull for your fan speed. And of course, it's got the obligatory heated front windscreen. One thing I really don't like is the volume dial doesn't quite mirror the start-stop. And here's what's on the screen. So instead of having a rev counter, you just get a charge and power dial. So one half will be power, the other half will be charge. If you turn on the car, that's the sound it makes when you turn it on, and that is your power and charge reader. And of course, you got your battery gauge on the bottom, and underneath that is your fuel range. And just like any other Jaguar or Land Rover, you just press this button here to get some additional information. So let's turn this off. That's the sound it makes. And of course, you can choose what you want to display here. So, like trip summary, for example. And in this case, you got a satellite view of the map on the right-hand side. And here's a quirk. Despite being a Jaguar, you can still raise or lower the ride height due to air suspension. And now we're going down. So that's the exterior and interior done now. So let's see what this car is like to drive. So yes, my first time driving an EV. And off we go. So even though an EV car does not make a sound, there is still a slight hum to reassure you that it is indeed moving. Oh, very sunny today, so sun visor down. And it sounds very space shuttle-y, not that I'm complaining. And of course it still has the usual Jaguar sound, such as the indicator tick. And this used to be a roundabout, now it's a traffic light. Steering is light. And again, because it's an I-Pace, the Pace being Jaguar's SUV range, I am sat quite high up. But if I want, put the seat down, Now I'm sat more into the car, as if I'm driving a normal car that's just jacked up. Strangely, Jaguar are blanking out the sunglasses cubby. So if this were to be my personal car, I would immediately swap that to hold sunglasses. I've always liked the way the steering wheel looked, and this I-Pace was the first Jaguar to have this steering wheel, and it's a shame that they did not put this on the F-Type. I think it would suit the F-Type very, very well. And because this car was designed from the ground up to only have 2 pedals and never 3, you do get a very large footrest for your left foot. On the F-Type, for example, it's very, very thin. Now, interestingly, this is an EV400, so you get 400 PS. In Germany, you still got the 400, but you also got a detuned, because in Germany, their tax system operates in terms of power outage. So the detuned alternative is simply there for a cheaper tax option for German I-Pace drivers. Thankfully, this car does have hold, so foot off the brake and we're still on drive and we're still stationary. And also, just to clarify, this is not a performance orientated model. This is not an SVR or an SV product, but yet I am still thankful this car has the performance seats, just like the ones on my F-Type, but these ones look nicer because they're in red and also carbon fiber. And thanks to the lack of sound, it does very well in town driving. It's obviously in places like these where driving an EV actually feels kind of nice to drive. It's quiet, and being a Jaguar, it's very, very well insulated acoustically. And even though this has the ebony or dark fake suede headlining, it does feel fairly bright thanks to this glass roof, despite being heavily tinted. And of course the red seats are another reason why it feels very nice and bright here. And thanks to this massive screen in front of me, it's very easy to look outside, and due to the very short bonnet, it's also very easy to maneuver. Again, the upside of it being built as an EV from the ground up. General visibility on roundabouts is very good as well, especially over my shoulder. And the pace is definitely there, even with 1/3 of a throttle. I was able to pull out quickly. It certainly has the pace. And there's 70. Thankfully, this particular car has the head-up display. And thanks to this particular car having blind spot monitoring, it's a very easy car to maneuver in traffic as well. These are probably the smoothest brakes I've ever used. They're not too grabby, and there's no dead spot at all. Indicator stalks feel very, very well damped. Though personally I wish that the ends were in silver as well. And despite being a 4-door, well 5-door because it's got a hatch, and despite being a 5-door crossover, looking over the mirror it still has a good view of its rear 3/4. So the body of the car is still well sculptured for its category. And I think the designer did very well with this car because, well, the competition, you got the Mercedes EQC, which looks a bit too bloated. You got the Audi e-tron, which looks fine, but a bit safe and a bit too sensible. And then you got the BMW iX3, which I've always hated the look of, both the iX3 and its original counterpart. Oh, and just like a Land Rover, it's got ride height adjuster as well. So let's just creep forward a little bit. Not used to driving a car with a very tiny bonnet. Does it lower? Yes, it does. Now on the Range Rover, it would set back to normal height when you set off. Does this one? Yes, it does after 30. Which is a shame because I actually quite like the way the I-Pace looks when it's lowered. And let's face it, a lower car has better aerodynamic. Plus a lower center of gravity. So it would have been great if that option was there to keep the lower ride height on even while driving over 30. What's nice is that even the wind noise here is very, very minimal. Yes, you do notice it. Same with the tyre roar, but again, it's not at all intrusive. I'm pretty sure that's how XJ12 owners feel when they drive their cars around. Onwards onto the roundabout. And speed bumps. That was probably the smoothest I've been over a speed bump. That was a speed bump. Someone doing a three-pointer. Again, smoothest brakes I've ever used. I'm pretty sure the camera is shaking from your perspective, but from my end, I can barely feel it at all. Here comes another speed bump. It did not even lift, it just went straight on. And of course, the nature of it being an I-Pace, you do get the ground clearance. But at least unlike the E-Pace and the F-Pace, it still drives more like a car, even more like a car. And it definitely feels more like a car than the Range Rover I drove. And I also driven a Discovery Sport, which I had as a courtesy car from another dealership, not from Melksham or Staverton. But that car would roll on every given opportunity. But in this one, the chassis feels as good as crossovers get. The chassis in this one feels better than many non-SUV cars I've driven. Okay, that speed bump I did feel, but that was a really deep one. Bit of a blind spot coming from these A-pillars, but they're not major. View from the back. Thick C-pillar, but again, I've been in worse when it comes to rearward visibility. And of course, on some JLR products, you can just opt for the camera on the rear view mirror. One thing I'm not too keen on is that the passenger wiper doesn't quite cover up that corner very well. Yes, that's always the case in most cars, but on this one I think the passenger wiper is a bit too small for this massive windscreen. And this particular car does not have the 360 camera, but it is an option on the I-Pace. That was a Range Rover Velar. Need to get one on the channel. Another three-pointer in front of me. Steering may be very light, but it is very, very precise. very busy in the town centre. Actually, city centre. Range Rover Sport, new shape. Oh look, another I-Pace. Here comes the oblique left turn. And turn. Literally no body roll, and I did a very sharp turn as well. And the reason I'm stressing on the no body roll part is I've sat in cars with a much lower ride height that would still body roll on that tight turn. Yeah, when it comes to city driving, an EV does feel very nice to drive and relaxing, which is what you want in your luxury car. And it still handles very well, and there's no body roll. So it is one of those have your cake and eat it cars. What's interesting is that this car still has a dynamic mode. This is Eco, Comfort, ADSR, and we'll reserve dynamic for later on. Dynamic mode. Currently on a 50, so I'm not going to test it out here yet. It still pulls, and it does sound very throaty in dynamic mode. And there's a speed limit. Even the sound it makes is really nice. Delay, 3, 2, 1, and go! It almost sounds like they're trying to mimic a supercharger whine in dynamic mode with your foot down. I'll do it one more time. That is definitely a supercharger whine. Yep, even in dynamic mode the brakes are sufficient. And yep, turning feels a lot more sharper, and I'm pushed into my seat bolster. Thankful this car has the performance seats, and that wasn't even full throttle. That's full throttle. So if you need to make a quick kick down, this car has it in spades. So if you're looking for an EV that does the comfort stuff well and the driving dynamic stuff well, this car provides it all. So let's head back to the compound and finalize this video. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me try out this Jaguar I-Pace, my first time trying an EV. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to stay up to speed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.